My role involves writing, interviewing industry experts, data crunching, and analyzing mutual funds, giving recommendations. So overall, it's quite a blend of different roles, I would say. Of course, I don't do all of this on a daily basis. Like it's
Yeah,
not like I'm writing also, doing interview also, and doing fund recommendation also. Especially if you have been aligned on the fund analysis side, where you're giving recommendations,
hmm.
it becomes even more important that you talk with the fund managers whose funds you are recommending. So, as everyone out there says, this is India's decade, so it
Yeah.
it hopefully seems so. Big Four, I feel like there's just too much of workload. I used to wake up thinking about work. I used to do work the whole
Hmm.
day. I used to dream about work.
ऑडिट टैक्स अकाउंट्स नहीं करना है तो फिर क्या करना है?
It was more like I want to be in the field of personal finance, so I don't want to do audit.
Oh,
So many people in India actually are uneducated in this space. So I think I'm an accidental writer. Let's just write and let me build a portfolio of my knowledge on LinkedIn. My first original post in which I did some research and wrote, it got more than 150 plus likes. Yeah, that was actually a wow moment for me because there is someone whom you admire, whose videos you are watching to learn, and that person is appreciating you. So it just gives your work more credibility. One of my connection sometime back wrote a post that LinkedIn is the only place where strangers support you more than your known ones. Obviously you are not supposed to bore people, so and finance supposedly is boring for a lot of people, so the challenge really is how to make your content interesting. Even a dumb person who can learn everything but actually doesn't know how to apply it practically can clear. So I think it's very high time that we change how we conduct our examinations.
yeah.
When I write articles on taxation, because it's a part of personal finance, I
Hmm.
actually have to Google because it's so confusing.
Half of my hate for tax and audit comes from the fact that I have to by heart all those things for the examination. And, probably in future we will have chat GPT also with us in CA examinations. So who knows? The concept is that human brain is not designed for routine things or memorizing things.
Sleep time and waking up time, if it is consistent, then it is easy to build a schedule. The three big things that we chase in life are wealth, health, and happiness. And we pursue them in this order, but it should actually be a reverse.
Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of the CA podcast. Today our guest is Shruti Agarwal. Shruti works as Senior Mutual Fund Analyst at Value Research. Her job revolves around personal finance. For that, she has to write about many things and interview a lot of people and also talk to many other experts. What exactly her job is and how does she manage to do all these things, we will understand from her. So let's welcome Shruti. How are you, Shruti?
Hi, Swapnil. I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Tell me about yourself in general. Like, did you want to become CA at the first place? Then, what was your articleship experience like? And also tell us, like, what do you do currently as a part of your job?
So, Swapnil, I would be lying if I would say I wanted to become a CA, right from the beginning. So, choosing commerce for me was more of a rejection than a selection of a stream.
Oh,
And for some reason, I didn't want to take science, bio, and since I was studious, so arts was not, my option. So, the only option I had was commerce. So, I took commerce with mathematics.
hmm.
And once I chose commerce, CA became an obvious path. So I think it was my father who introduced me to this degree of chartered accountancy. I'm not sure, but I think it was him. And at that time, it was clear that, okay, I've taken commerce, so I'll do CA.
Okay.
Now, I didn't know anything about CA, like how hard the course is and what all things would transpire in the journey. And I knew nothing. I just knew it requires hard work and I can do it.
Hmm.
So with that thought, I started on with my CA journey, and it's been great. Of course, it wasn't easy, and I didn't even complete it in one go. So I flunked in audit during my first attempt of CA finals. So overall, it has been nice. And my articleship, I did it from a mid-sized PA firm in Jaipur. So that time, it was one of the top firms in Jaipur.
Okay.
And I'm actually glad I did it from a mid-sized firm because it actually gave me an opportunity to take time out for my studies.
Hmm.
Because I don't think if I had done it from a big four, then I would have been able to manage my time. No, it's difficult to comment without actually, experiencing it, but it's my belief. So because my articleship was also nice, the experience I got, the kind of audits I got. I even went outstation for doing central bank audit. So I don't think my experience was lacking in substance, so to
Hmm.
say.
Hmm.
And also when you do it from a mid-sized firm, you get to do a lot of things because
Right.
in our larger firms, things get departmentalized. So in
Correct.
a lot of ways, it is good. Of course, there are other benefits of doing it from a big four, but I have no regrets, frankly speaking, of doing it from a mid-sized firm. So that was overall my CA journey. And currently, I'm working as a mutual fund analyst in value research. So, as you said, my role involves writing, interviewing industry experts, data crunching, and analyzing mutual funds, giving recommendations. So, overall, it's quite a blend of different roles, I would say.
Awesome. You were working in a mid-sized firm and you don't kind of regret that. So, but do you feel like, there are, as you said, like there are some good things and bad things. Even I did from a mid-sized firm, and the good part of doing in a mid-sized firm is something that you build good relationships, if not network per se, or not you don't enter into that competition with your colleagues and all, but you build a nice relationship with all the colleagues and even the partners or the chartered accountants working over there. So like I have good relations with them. So today if I call someone, that person will be ready to help me at any given point in time. So that's the good thing about working in a mid-sized firm. So the culture and everything is different, and it is kind of a bit of homely nature come sort of corporate types. So like it's a blend of all those things. But there are some things that mid-sized firm you cannot, after a particular point you don't see what you can do in that mid-sized firm company, right? Because you have to go out into the industry, or into the, if someone is practicing, then for experience or to gain the credibility of on your resume, at least you need that big four wala experience. So, and you also worked in a big four later. So did you have this kind of comparison always in your mind, like, okay, these are the good things, these are the bad things, or something like that? Like, can you just chart them out?
Absolutely, Swapnil. So, when I started working in EY, so first of all, I never actually wanted to join a big four after doing CA. But
Hmm.
that's a separate story that because of COVID and all, I was having no other option but to join a big four. So I started there and it was an audit department. And as it's a infamous thing that big fours are actually known for their working culture and particularly in the audit department.
Right.
So my first point of comparison was, I would say, the culture, because big four mein I feel like there's just too much of workload and you are just constantly under that pressure of doing one thing after the other. Literally, I used to wake up thinking about work. I used to do work the whole day.
Hmm.
I used to dream about work. So it was becoming damn too hectic for me. And even on weekends, a lot of times nobody will ask you to work, but just because you have so many things on your plate, you have to
Hmm.
work.
Right.
And on holidays also a lot of times. So, and I personally don't like this kind of a working environment, and coupled with the fact that I didn't want to do audit in the first place. So
Hmm.
when you're doing something which you don't like, and then the working culture is not, conducive. So it just becomes a bummer. So that is the first thing. That is a con, I would say. The pro is that the type of clientele that you have on your portfolio and the kind of
Right.
people you deal with, that actually boosts your confidence. So, because the listed entities, or
Hmm.
even if they are not listed, then big brand names that whose
Right.
product or service you are using. So it just gives you that wow feeling that you are looking at their financial statements, or
Hmm.
talking to the employees who are working there, understanding how the business is running. So that understanding really helps, and it's a great confidence booster. Otherwise, as it goes for any organization, the more bigger it is, the more structured it is.
Hmm.
So, like I mentioned, that in a mid-sized firm, you are actually having a flexible kind of a role. You can do a lot of things. You can sit with different seniors and talk about their audits, or just give a
Right.
lending hand to somebody else. But in
Yeah.
a big four, that's not a possibility, simply because you are having so much on your plate, and also confidentiality issues are there. So one team member actually cannot share the stuff of other clients.
Right.
So that, I would say, both pros and cons are there. But yeah, as you mentioned, it's a good add to the CV. So it really helps. So I don't regret doing it from a mid-sized firm, because I wanted a different path for me. Like I didn't want a typical accounts and finance kind of a role in the corporate sector. So I don't feel like if had I done it from a big four, then I would have got some advantage. I even
Hmm.
didn't want to join a big four. So for me personally, it didn't matter. But for a lot of people who want to go into this field, for them, it is definitely a plus point.
Yeah. Yeah. And one more thing you just mentioned at the end, now, that was like you didn't want to, go into the typical accounting or even the auditing profiles. So that's something which I have seen as a very common trait. While doing articleship, you start hating audit and tax somehow. And even after doing even after becoming CA, you don't want to continue that particular area of in general. So why do we think like this? And then what are the options that you had in front of you while choosing कि okay, audit tax accounts नहीं करना है तो फिर क्या करना है? And then how did you choose? Say for example, now you are working at Value Research, so how did you choose that?
Yeah, I mostly agree with your observation that nowadays we see a lot of people who don't want to do audit or tax. And one reason that I can, think of is just because now you have other options too. Like the previous generation, when they used to enroll into CA, audit and tax was primarily the only
Yeah.
thing that existed, and when you enter into CA, that is what you would be doing. So there was no inconsistency between what you expected and what options you have. But now I think the thing is, because articleship actually gives you first-hand experience of how the world of audit is or taxation is. So a lot of people, by the time they complete their articleship, either they develop a like or dislike for that
Hmm.
field. So personally, I have many friends who are just audit lovers. They just
Hmm.
want to work in a big four, and they just love the work. And then on the other side, there are also people like me who don't want to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think it's also because these days we don't bind ourselves, or we don't confine ourselves in a box that we have enrolled into CA, we are doing this, so this is what we will do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I always say this to people, like our previous generations, they used to start with a job and retire in the same job.
True. True.
It's just unimaginable in the current world, because every 2 or 3 years we are seeing people changing jobs.
Yeah.
So I think it's just because we have options, and we just don't want like to confine ourselves. That is why people are taking that leap of faith, that they want to try other things. And secondly, how I chose was, actually it was a bit different. It wasn't like I don't want to do audit, then what else can I do? It was more like I want to be in the field of personal finance, so I don't want to do audit.
Oh, okay.
And also the fact that I didn't like audit. I won't say I hate it, but I don't like it either.
Hmm.
So, and since I started developing a liking for personal finance, investments management, so for me, it was very clear that this is what I want to get into.
Okay. So how did you start liking personal finance?
I don't know the exact point when I started liking personal finance, but the most of the triggers were during the period when I was awaiting my CA final results, the
Okay.
second attempt, because when I appeared for the first time, a lot of my friends cleared, so some were working in some other city, or even if the people who didn't clear, they were living in other city and they were preparing for the exams. So when I was
Hmm.
awaiting the results of my second attempt, I was actually very bored and free that time.
Okay.
So I just randomly started watching YouTube videos on personal finance because, and I think partly because I've seen my father watching CNBC since I was a child. So he doesn't invest a lot, but he just likes to watch business news or, stock related news.
Hmm. Hmm.
So maybe subconsciously those concepts were there in my mind, or I was familiar with those things. So I just started watching those videos.
Hmm.
And and another thing that I felt that time was, since I'll be earning soon, I was clear I'll clear this time. I
Okay.
mean, I was pretty much sure. There's no guarantee, but given my exam performance, I was like, this time I'll clear. So I'll be starting to earn soon. So I should know how to manage my money.
Okay.
So that is another reason why I started watching personal finance videos. And when I sort of developed my knowledge there, I just realized and I just came to know that so many people in India actually are uneducated in this space,
Hmm.
and they're not taking charge of their money, which is, very counterintuitive, because our entire life we aim for getting good job, earning
Right.
well, living a comfortable life, but at the same time we are not focusing on, how to manage it. So that actually got me started, and the more I watched, read, the more interest I developed, and that is when I realized that I found something that I want to do. Till that time I had no passion, so to say, and this used to bother me a lot of times, that why I don't have any, special liking for something. A lot of people know since childhood they want to become a doctor. My own
Ah.
brother, my younger sibling, he has been very passionate since childhood. So I used to feel that I don't feel passionate about anything.
Ah.
But when that thing happened, I realized, everyone has their own timelines, so you cannot compare. So it just dawned upon me that this is one field that I can pursue.
Great. Great. So now let's come to your current job. So what exactly is the job? What you have to do, and what's the day like?
To start with, actually, we do fund recommendations. So I have got some equity fund categories that I have to look into.
Okay.
So periodically we review our recommendations, like which fund has to be in our buy list, hold list, sell list. And the
Hmm.
funds that make to our buy list, we give our thesis why we like that fund or what is
Hmm.
the investment strategy of that fund. And then we update it periodically. So this is one part. Then we write articles, and for that, first we have to ideate stories.
Hmm.
And that happens by spotting trends, reading news, or data crunching, thinking about something, and then doing data analysis to see if there is some insight to share with
Hmm.
the investors. So story ideation happens, and then you eventually write the story with all
Correct.
the data and writing and everything. Then, as you said, we also interview fund managers. So we want to get their perspective on the markets and their investment philosophy. And if we notice any change in their fund mandates or the way they are managing the fund, then we do check with them that what is the rationale for bringing those changes. So all of this is the routine work. And of late, we have also started some video format programs for our viewers.
Okay.
So, depending on the topic, relevant persons from the team appear in those videos. So,
Hmm.
that is also there. So, this is all the routine stuff. And then every now and then, some special projects also come up. It can be related to data or writing or anything. So,
Hmm. Hmm.
yeah, that is overall. And of course, I don't do all of this on a daily basis. Like, it's
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
like I'm writing also, doing interview also, and doing fund recommendation also. But it just keeps rotating task by
Yeah.
task.
So I've watched a couple of videos and they are really insightful. So anybody watching this, like, I would highly recommend going to their website and watching them. So that is one thing, and the other part is like I wanted to know then. It requires a lot of skills, like, so okay, technical skills, you are a chartered accountant and you might have all those skills, that is assumed. But how did writing come up? Like, were you fond of writing from the early days, or it just started by, on the job?
So actually, that is also an interesting story. So I think I'm an accidental writer. And why
Okay.
I say this is because it was not even in my wildest imagination that I would be writing for a living.
Okay.
And I have never written anything since childhood except for the answer sheets in examinations. I haven't even maintained a personal diary. So there was no connection between me and writing until COVID came. So all thanks to COVID. And I'll just give you a perspective. So I cleared my CA in January 2020.
Okay.
Then March we saw COVID, and my joining in EY was supposed to happen in April.
Okay.
So now you're free with the exams. You have no friends in the city. Your joining is 2 months, 1 or 2 months later. So I was again bored. So it was a random thought that, and I was a consumer of LinkedIn by that time. Like I used to read a lot of articles on LinkedIn shared by other people. And since I was developing my interest parallelly in personal finance, though my job in EY wasn't related to that, so I
Hmm.
just thought ki maybe let's just write and let me build a portfolio of my knowledge on LinkedIn.
Okay.
So maybe that will help me later for jobs when I'll be searching in this field of portfolio management or investment management or
Hmm.
research and everything. So obviously all these thoughts didn't came on the first day. So first day, though, I just wrote something, and the engagement I got on that post was not at all expected. So I think my first original post, like not a repost or anything like that, my first original post in which I did some research and wrote, it got more than 150 plus likes. That time when
Wow.
uh, I was
What was
just
that
a
on?
newbie. It was regarding that fraud that Carvi did. Some
Okay.
investors, they siphoned the money and they used it for their own use. So
Yeah.
I actually broke down what happened and the risk related to that and something something. So it was nice. It was a good feeling, obviously. So and then I wrote more, and the kind of feedback I got from people was really encouraging for me because it was very unexpected, and I didn't know I can write well. Like,
Hmm.
like I cannot write fiction, but at least when it comes to breaking down facts or simplifying finance and
Hmm.
making people understand what I want to say. So
Yeah.
that realization I got from people's feedback that okay, I can write decent. And then the biggest thing for me was getting appreciation from my favorite YouTuber, personal finance YouTuber, whom I used to follow a lot by that time, which is Pranjal Kamra. So I actually wrote a post about one of his video, and I tagged him without expecting, any comment from him or any engagement from him. But he actually saw that post and he liked it. And maybe he saw my profile and some other previous post. And he then invited me to write a blog for his website, a
Oh,
guest blog.
wow.
And that was that was actually a wow moment for me because there is someone whom you admire, whose videos you are watching to learn. And that person is, appreciating you. So it just gives your work more credibility. So I wrote a blog for his website, and that time there was a big news about this Vodafone and Idea merger. So
Hmm.
my blog was about the telecom industry, like how duopoly is happening between Airtel and Jio and all those things. So it was a nice experience. So that actually gave me the confidence and the belief on my own abilities that I can write. So that was actually, the final confirmation to or testament to the fact
Right.
that I can write. So it was then I thought ki okay, so if I have to get into this field, then I can write also. So and I didn't want to, go into a role which involved only writing because
Hmm.
coming from a CA background and numbers, you want numbers.
Right. Right.
It was looking very risky to me, and I also felt that maybe I'm enjoying writing like on a as a hobby, but maybe I
Hmm.
won't like it when I be doing it, for a full-time job.
Hmm.
So that was another factor that came to my mind. So I was looking for a job which has a blend of data research and maybe writing. And as luck would have it, I just found the exact job profile when I visited Value Research page, career page. And when I looked at it, I was like, this is exactly what I want. And I just thought it would be great if I can get into this organization.
Wow, that's really good. As in, it's because it takes a lot of time to build a good profile in on LinkedIn or wherever, and write good articles and get appreciation from people whom you admire. So that is really worth appreciating. And how did then interviews came? As in, you also interview people, right? So how that happened? Were you, again, the same question, were you good at interviewing people? I don't know if there was any uh, experience in it, but were you good at just the interpersonal skills already, but or how then this happened?
So actually, it's a part of our job profile that we have to
Okay.
talk with the industry experts, and especially if you have been aligned on the fund analysis side where you're giving recommendations,
Hmm.
it becomes even more important that you talk with the fund managers whose funds you are recommending. So it just helps you, know understand the fund manager better. That actually gives you that qualitative aspect to your research. So, but yeah, obviously you have to have a certain level of soft skills to interact with the experts. So it's not like there would be some evaluation criteria going on in the team. At least I can talk about my organization. I don't know what happens at other places,
Hmm.
but yeah, some level of some decency is required. But it's not that you have to be a pro at talking to people. Of course, the more pro you are, the better interview you can take.
Right.
You can ask better questions, you can ask follow-up questions, so that helps, but it's not that big a criteria, I would say. So it's largely a part of the job.
Awesome. Since you are talking about the mutual fund industry, and we are talking about it for a very long time, so would you share some of your thoughts or some research that your team might have done on Indian economy and global economy, and what's the current state like? What do you think about it in the future? Not future, but like in the near term, as in people are talking about recession. So any outlook on all those things?
So I think right now when we are speaking, Indian markets are at their all-time highs.
Yeah.
So investors are rejoicing, and especially because last year was completely sideways. So, and the first quarter of this year actually gave negative returns with Adani, Hindenburg, and all those things.
Yeah.
So, so, so though it looks like we are slightly, the market is slightly at a premium, but still, I think on an overall basis, and especially from the long-term perspective, I think Indian retail investors have grown a lot in terms of their participation in the financial securities or financial assets.
Hmm.
So, especially after COVID, I think a lot of people have started paying attention to, what they're missing out by not investing in equity.
Yeah.
And we saw record demat account openings. Even the mutual funds SIP inflows are, they have grown by leaps and bounds over the last few years. And despite a great participation or a great increase in participation, I think the penetration in India is quite low as compared to developed economies. So in India, only 4 to 5% of the people invest in equities, and in US and other developed countries, it's more than 50% of their houses
Right.
invest in equity.
Right.
So we still have a long way to go, but it's good to know that at least that acknowledgement is there, even among the retail investors. So on a long-term basis, I think it's great. Talking about recession, personally, I don't know because even the economists are divided on this debate. So every month or every week we get a new study, and some people say recession would be there, some say recession won't be there. And I think even this week Goldman released some report, and they actually cut down their probability or their analysis of the probability of US
Right.
going into a recession. So it's been a mixed bag, but I think Indian economy is quite resilient as we stand today. So And of course, the global markets would have an impact on the Indian markets too, but it won't be that much. So, as everyone out there says, this is India's decade. So
Yeah,
it hopefully seems so. So I think it's great for investors to be investing in India at this point of time.
awesome. So that's really good. And yeah, most of the things I also agree to it. Now, coming to the writing part again. So you are quite popular on LinkedIn. So are there any tips that you would like to give to people, or mainly chartered accountants who want to expand their, say, LinkedIn profile, or who want to, write more about their own professional experiences and all those things? So are there any tips or something that you would like to share?
So based on my personal experience, I would say people actually support you a lot on LinkedIn. And one of my connection sometime back wrote a post that LinkedIn is the only place where strangers support you more than your, known ones. And I actually felt every word of it because I got into writing only because of some strangers, random people liking my post or, motivating me. I even got recommendations that you should start writing on Twitter, you should open YouTube and all. So I think it's a great community and a good community support. And being a CA, you have so much to share.
Yeah.
And because a lot of people who are pursuing CA would like to listen to, their seniors and gain perspective into the course or how they should deal with the challenges that they're facing or the kind of job environment that is available to them once they clear. So it's a good audience. So I have
Right.
also written a lot about CAs and it just helps with the content creation, but it also helps with the ice breaking because you're talking about something which you have experienced. So you don't have to do any research. You don't have to
Hmm.
be nervous. What if, people mock you or people don't agree with your opinion? It's not opinion, it's your experience.
Right.
So, so I think it just increases the courage that you have while posting on a social media platforms, particularly if you are an introvert kind of a person or you don't like social media a lot. So these kind of starting with these kind of content actually helps. And then talking about strategies, I don't have any hardcore strategy in my mind, but there are few things that I always focus on. So the first is that the content has to be a quality content.
Hmm.
It should be useful for the reader. They should derive some value out of it. If they are taking out time to read it, it shouldn't be just a random joke or and maybe few posts are okay. Few such posts are okay, but if you're posting just jokes and memes, and I don't think it's a value add on a platform like LinkedIn. I might go to Instagram or Facebook for that.
Right.
So for me, it's the quality is the top notch thing. And then secondly, what I focus on is how easy it is to understand what I'm writing. I mean, the person, it should be jargon free, and especially when it comes to finance, the number one reason why people actually run away from finance related post or personal finances because it just becomes too technical for them. So
Hmm.
what I started doing was I used to draw analogies from daily life and how we can relate things in our daily lives to investing and
Hmm.
giving examples, and that just makes it an interesting thing to read and an easy to understand content. So primarily, this is what I focus on. And obviously, you are not supposed to bore people. So, and finance supposedly is boring for a lot of people. So the challenge really is how to make your content interesting.
Yeah.
So that is something I try to bring in that element of, fun or some other fun element if it can be there without really compromising on the intent of the post.
Nice. Nice. So, last couple of questions. So, what I'll do is, since we are short of time, I'll give you 2 minutes to rant about anything, whatever you have things in mind to, in general, about the CA course, about what people do in general, about the work culture, or anything, any random thing. What are the pros and cons of CA, or whatever you want to talk about? I'll just give you 2 minutes to rant about it, and whatever you have in mind, you can just go ahead.
Okay. So, since your podcast is on CAs and a lot of our conversation was around CA course and CA students, so I would just share my perspective on where I feel this course lacks in terms of building skill set in individuals. So personally, I feel that I don't know what changes have been introduced now, like in the new curriculum,
Hmm.
because I heard there are some changes. But what I went through, I personally find that it has to do a lot of it is about cramming formulas, laws, and everything. And and actually, when you start your job, you don't have to learn them by heart. You need to understand how do you find a certain thing and whether your interpretation of the law is right or not. So I think it should be the interpretation or the usage of the law that should be tested rather than if you can learn it by heart. So,
Yeah.
for example, tax laws, it's just too complicated. Indian tax is way too complicated. So even CAs, they have to ultimately Google a lot of things.
Yeah.
When I write articles on taxation, because it's a part of personal finance, I
Hmm.
actually have to Google because it's so confusing, and
Yeah.
especially the capital gains, which is related to investments.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
listed securities, unlisted securities, and then 2 years or 3 years or 1 year for classifying long term, short term. Then for some instruments, you get indexation benefit, for others, you
Yeah.
don't. So it's just very complicated. And when I was studying it, it just feels like torture that
Yeah.
we have to learn all of this. And this is not just limited to CA, like practically all educational courses, the way they are designed, especially in India, just have to learn it. So even the dumb person, and I'm using a very harsh statement, but even a dumb person who can learn everything but actually doesn't know how to apply it practically can
Yeah.
clear the exam. And on the other hand, if someone is really sharp, with their mind application, but they're not able to memorize exactly what's
Hmm.
there, they will flunk the paper.
Yeah.
So that I think is very impractical and it just doesn't fit into current world scenarios where we have AI. It's not just it the mundane work has already been taken care of by AI tools these
Yeah.
days, even writing to a lot of extent. So what you really need is now creativity, your human touch, and what new you can bring to what is already there. So I think it's very high time that we change how we conduct our examinations and what kind of skills we are looking for in students when we make give them a pass or a fail tag.
Yeah. Rightly said. Also agree with this because half of my hate for tax and audit comes from the fact that I have to by heart all those things for the examination. So that was one thing responsible for this kind of career confusion and all those things that people undergo. So that is one thing I completely agree with. The second thing I feel like you rightly said that application of something is more important than ratta maroing. So the recently I've not read the book, but I have read about the concept which is called as building the second brain. So the concept is that human brain is not designed for roting things or memorizing things. It is designed to analyze, and for that, what the I don't remember the name of the author or who you know started this idea, but the concept behind that is that for all the memorizing stuff, use some kind of tool. Okay, it could be some mostly computer tool only, some kind of software like people use Evernote or Notions or all those note taking softwares. You make sure that you build a library, so that is basically building a second brain. So the second brain is the tool that you will be using, and you will dump all your ideas, all the things. Say, for example, as a creator now or as a writer, what I personally do, and I assume most of people would be doing and you would be doing, is that you need to have some repository of the articles or a repository of something where you can at least go back and take some lessons from. Okay, these are the things I shouldn't be knowing, but your brain has limited capacity, you cannot remember all those things. Maybe some author has said something or something like that, you are not memorizing all those stuff, but you need some backup, and for that you have to have some repository of articles, some repository of links, and all those things. So I use Notion, for example, and what I do is like, okay, I have a repository, and whenever I want to understand ki, okay, I have written something around this, or I have read something around it, so I just search on that particular thing and find out what was the article about, or what was the concept about. So you don't have to remember these things, and that is what the building second brain is called. So the first brain, that is actual the human brain, is supposed to analyze or work upon the second brain, or work upon the help of the second brain, and not become a second brain, to relate to that analogy. So I completely agree with you, and we have to do that. And probably in future we will have chat gpt also with us in CA examinations. So who knows?
Yeah,
So
the world is changing, but
yeah,
let's see.
yeah. So last couple of questions again. Sorry, I'm saying last couple of questions a lot of time, but what are you currently obsessed with?
So, honestly speaking, I'm currently focusing on building good habits and trying hard to, stay consistent at them. And particularly, I've increased my focus on fitness because of late I've realized, the kind of job profiles we are at and our busy schedules. It's very easy to take health granted, especially when you are young. But for some reason, it has started occurring to me that, it's actually the right time to start focusing on building good habits because whatever I do at this point of time, it will help me to stay consistent in the later years of my life. So I've
Yeah.
started hitting the gym recently for the first time in my life.
Wow.
So, and earlier I used to do home workouts, but it's very different when you actually do workout in a gym. So I've done that, and I'm also focusing on taking out more time to read stuff, both related to my subject matter and also any other random things, just interesting facts, what's happening in the world, or
Hmm.
any other random thing. So, but for that, you need time. So,
Yeah.
and that actually comes when you wake up early, or even if you are doing it at night, then there has to be some schedule of, sleeping at time, sleep time and waking up time. If it is consistent, then it is easy to build a schedule. So
Right.
that is the third thing that I'm really trying to sleep on consistently, by 11:30, and then wake up like by 6:30. So sometimes I get here and there, but by and large, I am focusing to stay consistent.
Wow. Awesome. So last question is about recommendations. You can say, you can give any recommendations: books, movies, web series, documentaries, anything.
So, books particularly, and again, my first recommendation would be related to personal finance since I'm really obsessed with this field. So, I actually quite like this book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And I read it quite late in my life, like some 2 years back, maybe.
Hmm.
But I actually liked it. And, the beauty of that book is it's actually made for a layman. Like you don't have to be a finance expert to understand what the author is trying to say there,
Hmm.
and it beautifully gives you the message or the basics of how to think about building wealth, or why getting into that mindset is important. Like you just cannot elude from wealth saying you don't need money. It's a bullshit. So because what you get in life, what you chase, uh, you get what you chase basically.
Right.
So if you just dismiss the fact about wealth or money, you don't get it. And it's not that you need it, like for being happy or whatever, but let's face it, you need a certain degree of financial comfort in your life to actually enjoy it, or live it to its full potential and do whatever you want to do. And it
Hmm.
gives you freedom to do anything. So for me, it was a very nice read. And I think every person should read that, especially if you are not much into personal finance right now. You don't know the importance of investing or why you should even think about it in the first place.
Hmm.
So that can be a good starter book, I would say. And then apart from that, I usually like to read self-help kind of books, philosophical, or as I mentioned, that building habits, so mindset and all those things. So there, I think I particularly like novel. So
Hmm.
I recently read that book, which is basically a compilation of Naval's tweets or his
Tweets.
podcasts or his sayings, that the Almanac of Naval
Hmm.
Ravikant. So it actually has quite hard hitting statements, And the one which actually I particularly remember and I would like to share is so in one of the chapters, he says that the three big things that we chase in life are wealth, health, and happiness. And we pursue them in this order, but it should actually be a reverse.
Oh. Hmm.
So, it's easy to focus on money, that you need more salary and everything. And as I said, that it's easy to take health for granted when you are
Hmm.
young, but actually it should be your priority and it should even come before focusing on earning more. So, yeah, I mean, that would be largely my recommendations. And there's not just one or two things that you can follow. It's
Yeah, yeah.
mainly a culmination of a lot of things. And of late, I've realized. So earlier, I used to focus mostly on finance side. I used to
Hmm.
read on the finance side or anything, but now I've realized it's actually important to develop a multi-dimensional understanding of uh, everyday things that is happening around you.
Hmm. Hmm.
So that actually helps in a lot of indirect ways.
Right.
So that is something that I have recently picked on.
Thank you for wonderful recommendations, and thank you for a wonderful, time that you have given.
Thank you, Swapnil.